Straight Boy. Written by J. Bell. Narrated by Kurt Graves. Chapter 1. This is a new beginning. I can be anything I want. A jock with impressive biceps, the round curves glistening with sweat as I cock my arm back to throw a ball. Or a theater-obsessed drama student who says everything in a vaguely foreign accent. I can paint myself in mascara and drape myself in black leather, and everyone at school will assume I've always been that way. A snob? A nerd? A burnout? I can be absolutely anything. Which makes it ironic that all I am is bored out of my mind. And homesick. I pull out my phone, which has become like a pacifier that a toddler refuses to part with. I know I don't need it anymore. I just can't let it go yet, even though the life that used to course through my phone has slowed to a trickle. Calls and video conferencing were the first to go. Now I'm hardly getting any texts, and when I do... Brace yourself, Andrew. You'll never believe it. Piper broke up with Seth. My response is a pathetic, "Who?" "The guy who works at the car dealership. I guess you moved before meeting him." "Oh, is she upset?" "Not after Dixon dumped Gina the next day. They're totally going to hook up." I don't let on that I'm clueless as to who either of those people are. A lot can change over a single summer. That's what I had been counting on. I just thought the change would be in my favor. That I would be the one toning down my adventures so my friends back home wouldn't feel too envious and start to resent me. Instead, I'm worried they're starting to forget me. I'm so far away from everything I once knew. Before the move, that had sounded so appealing. A fresh start, in Chicago, a city of endless potential, a sprawling metropolis where all my dreams would come true. Or where I could sit in my parents' backyard while mourning everything I've left behind. Yay. I lower the phone in an attempt to remind myself just how awesome it is here. For starters, I'm sitting outside without feeling as if my eyeballs are going to fry like eggs, or that my skin will dry out and crack open. Summers in Albuquerque can be brutal. I find them much more tolerable here, especially now, at night. The cool air moving through the leafy trees is soothing instead of dusty and biting. We never got much green in New Mexico. I'm surprised there's so much here. When my parents first started talking about this move, I pictured us crammed into a small condo downtown. The reality is that we live a fair distance from the city in a village called Oak Park, which feels more like one of Chicago's many neighborhoods. Maybe it had once stood on its own before the endless sprawl from the city overtook it. Oak Park is now indistinguishable from the miles of tightly grouped buildings and crowded streets that lead east, where it's possible to see the skyline on a clear day. My brother and I once climbed up on the roof of our house to do so. That had made for an awesome selfie, and resulted in an outpouring of "You're so lucky" from my friends. Yeah, super lucky. I raise my phone again, needing one more suckle on that technological rubber nipple, despite the lack of notifications. I go to Instagram this time, and when seeing my friends only makes the pit in my stomach open wider, I look at my own profile instead, hoping to remind myself that I'm still having an awesome adventure. I can get a little morose at times. These moods never last long, but they're pretty potent when they happen. After browsing my photos, I have to admit that my life does indeed look happy. Plenty of images show me with sun reflecting off my blonde hair. White teeth, free from braces at last, flash at the camera as I try to catch the attention of my future, and so far non-existent, boyfriend. Behind me are all the impressive sights. Lake Michigan, the view from the Willis Tower, the shiny surface of the Cloud Gate, and many more. I detect a theme as I scroll back up. My older brother Reid is in most of these photos, looking like a total heartthrob, even though it nauseates me to acknowledge that. His appearances taper off around the time Reid met his girlfriend. A series of photos with my parents comes next, my expression not quite as certain. The most recent photos are of me on my own. I'm no longer smiling in them. I do appear kind of thoughtful, so bonus points there. I probably look like I've gotten really mature from this move, when, in truth, I feel like I haven't grown at all. I'm still the same person. It's only my body that's been displaced. No, you're not listening. I don't know who shouts this, but the voice is male and raw with emotion. Drama in the neighborhood. At this point, I'll take whatever action I can get, even if that means snooping. At least I'll have a story to tell my friends back home. To be honest, I love snooping. I'm nosy by nature, and a diversion is just what I need to return my thoughts to the present. So long as this little domestic dispute doesn't turn violent. If that happens, I'll call the police or knock something over to distract them. A trash can, probably, since the voices are coming from across the alley. I snort, recognizing how inner city that sounds, when really Oak Park is full of charming brick houses, wooden front porches, and droopy old trees. It's kind of gorgeous, but our neighborhood does have its ugly side. Much like a facelift, all the unappealing stuff is yanked toward the back, to where I'm walking now. Beyond our minuscule backyard, past the standalone garage and through the gate, that's where it truly looks like we live in the shadow of Chicago. Large plastic trash cans bake in the summer heat, the fragrance gag-worthy when they're full. Utility poles are covered in posters warning of vermin and poison traps, the occasional scurrying rat not impressed with the efforts to get rid of them. Sometimes we'll even get someone pushing a cart down the alley, rummaging for metal to sell. I'm tempted to stop and take a selfie to make it look like my new life is rough and I've been forced to develop street smarts. That's when I hear the voice again. You don't know what it's like for people like me. This gets my attention. I've said that phrase myself, in my more emotional moments, usually during a holiday, when I'm forced to be around relatives who aren't quite as understanding as my parents. I walk faster, a number of fantasies playing through my mind. I had given up on most of them as the summer went on, but I'd settle for a late romance rather than none at all. As soon as they find out, everyone treats you differently. Yes, they most certainly do. I practically run down the alley until the voice is to my right instead of in front of me. I have to be stealthy, even in the dark. This house's fence is chain link instead of the wooden planks that shroud our yard in privacy. That's both good and bad, because I'm able to see a teenage guy around my own age and an older couple who are likely his parents. The unobstructed view means I can be seen too. I keep walking until hidden behind their garage. Then I press my back to it and listen. It's not in my head, the guy shouts. To your face, they act like they understand, like they're sympathetic. But as soon as your back is turned, they start making jokes. Yeah, I've been there too. My mind races, trying to find any other interpretation of these words other than what I want them to mean. I can't really hear the other half of the conversation. The parents have kept their cool so far, but I don't care about them. I just want confirmation that... What am I supposed to do? I was born this way. All my willpower is needed to keep me from marching into that backyard while waving an invisible rainbow flag. I've never been into Lady Gaga. She's great, it's just not my style of music. But I'm glad she popularized that phrase. I was born this way too. I peer around the corner of the garage, trying to get a better look at this guy. The streetlights aren't helping. Only a small porch light is on at the back of their house, whereas I'm lit up for everyone to see. I risk a glimpse. The guy's back is to me, and he's shaking his head at whatever his parents are saying. One of them moves away, so I duck behind the garage again. I wait there, but the argument must have run its course, because I can't hear more. When a car turns down the alley, I keep walking, like I have a destination in mind. When I reach the next street, I turn around and head back, my pulse picking up as I pass by his house again. I don't stop this time, but I do look over. And I see him. He's alone in the yard now and facing my way. The shadows make it hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure he's handsome. He sees me and gives an upward nod. I don't know if I do the same. I'm too busy trying to get my knees to bend as I totter forward like a complete virgin who has never caught the attention of another boy before. I'm not a virgin, for what that's worth, but I might be out of practice. My face is burning when I reach the back gate of our yard. I slip through it, hoping he hasn't wandered out into the alley to investigate. Once I'm safely shut away, I stand still and listen. I don't hear footsteps or anyone calling out, "Hey, gorgeous, get your ass back here so we can kiss." Wouldn't that be something? I return to the deck chair where I was sitting earlier and resume warming the seat. I mentally play back the fragmented argument, trying to make sure I'm not deluding myself. But I keep reaching the same conclusion. I have a neighbor who, like me, is gay. I make it through an entire day without thinking of him. I don't mean the guy across the alley. He fills my thoughts with fantasies, each of them welcome like a much-needed cure. But it doesn't last. I'm sitting in my room when it happens. Spotify recommends the wrong song. Just a cover version, but it's still enough to send my mind racing back to Albuquerque, to a different bedroom. The furniture is still the same, only the shape of the room is different. And I'm not alone. A guy with poofy red hair and glasses is smiling down at me, his palms on the mattress to either side of my head. His naked body is pressed against mine, and with a doofy grin, he says, "Remind me again where I'm supposed to put it?" Scott always joked around like that. My sides often hurt from laughter when we hung out. Just an ache, compared to the pain that came later, when Scott found someone that made him laugh too. I tried to be grown up about it. I did research online and found articles that assured me attraction is mostly out of our hands. We want who we want. Simple as that. Choice isn't involved. At times, this made me feel better. Scott didn't cheat. He just explained things one Sunday afternoon, and for once he hadn't cracked any jokes or used funny voices. Instead, he sat on the edge of my bed and fidgeted, every other sentence an apology. I wasn't completely surprised. I knew that he was more into the idea of having a boyfriend rather than me in particular. That's how it started for both of us. We wanted to be gay in practice instead of just theory. That required another person, and neither of us was picky about who. Then I fell in love. He didn't. The last semester of my junior year was pure hell until my mom mentioned the job transfer. I couldn't believe my luck. I was certain physical distance would help. It didn't. Maybe I need physical closeness instead. Not for the first time. I browse a cruising app on my phone. Normally, I try to ignore the photos of toned torsos, since those guys are looking for one thing only. This time, I go straight for the meat. But I soon feel repulsed. There's nothing wrong with casual sex. I just know that it would be a struggle for me. I'd have too many questions, want to talk and get to know the guy first. Ideally, I would have dinner with him a few times to make sure he wasn't a total creep. Once I was comfortable around him, then we could get freaky. In other words, I wanted a relationship, not a hookup. With that in mind, I switched to a different app. But after some swiping left and right, I give up. I can't stop thinking about a freckled back and pale skin, or lips that press against my neck and blow, resulting in a fart noise. The memory alone is enough to make me laugh, and close both apps. I'm still not ready, am I? I think of my mystery man again, who is perfect by virtue of anonymity. I wouldn't be able to point him out in a police lineup. I don't know anything about him except his rough age and where he lives. Oh, and that he feels misunderstood and ill-treated, which isn't a rarity. Most of my friends could make the same claim. Only the specific reason why might make him special, and that's still a giant assumption. I want more than just a fantasy. I'm willing to explore the reality. I just don't see how we'll ever get to know each other or even meet. I rack my brain trying to find a way, mostly because it's better than dwelling on the past. The next day, my brother comes up with the perfect excuse. Inadvertently. My bedroom is in a finished basement, next to the family room. If my brother ever moves out, I'll have the bottom floor all to myself. My parents tend to watch TV and socialize on the upper floors. They don't like the temperature in the basement. And yeah, when they're running the air conditioner, it can feel like a refrigerator, despite the carpeted floors and insulated walls. Needing an extra blanket is a small price to pay for getting to feel like I live by myself. I already come and go through the rear entrance of the house to further enhance this illusion. For now, I have a roommate. My brother often sprawls out on the couch while channel surfing. He never settles on anything for long, although when he does, it's usually to the sound of a roaring stadium. I hear a referee's whistle when I leave my room, and sure enough, Reid is taking up most of the couch while watching a game. He looks a little like me if I did push-ups every day and dyed my hair brown. I suppose I need to start chugging protein shakes too, because I'm nowhere near as beefy as he is. "Hey," he says, raising the remote to mute the television. "Mom's cat is still missing." The cat has a name, Hufflepuff, and she belongs to all of us, technically, but Mom takes care of her. As far as the cat is concerned, no one else exists. "What's it been?" I ask. 3 days? "Yeah," Reid replies. "Is that a long time?" "Long enough to be worried." My brother sits upright. "You know how I feel about that cat. Still." "We don't want Mom to be sad," I say. "Exactly. Flyers? Already did them." My brother tosses the remote on the table. "The online equivalent, anyway. I guess we could put some up. Maybe go door to door?" "Door to door?" I ask. My brother looks at me like I'm stupid, which is fine. He's been doing that since I was born. Sometimes I wish I had a younger sibling, just so I could act superior and do the same. Right now, all I can think about is one door in particular. Worth a shot. Good. Reid picks up his phone. He doesn't explain what he's doing. I have to stand there and wait, like I'm his servant. "I just emailed you the flyer. Go upstairs and print it out." "Yes, sir." When he reaches for the remote, I grab it and throw it across the room just to mess with him. I have to run afterwards because Reid loves nothing more than putting me in a headlock and making me beg for mercy. Once I'm in the office and the printer is churning out page after page, I'm tempted to create another flyer. One with a silhouette of a male figure on it instead of a cat photo. The flyer would read, "Missing, my soulmate. Intelligent, handsome, funny, and kind. Last seen walking through my dreams. Reward, one barely used heart. No questions asked." After thinking about it, I decide that last line would have to go. Eventually, when I find the right guy, I will ask a question. A very big one. For now, I'd settle for getting to meet him. I haven't lived in Chicago for long, but I've already picked up on patterns in the weather. Clouds that cover the sky from horizon to horizon are a lot more common here, for instance. Such days are usually warmer than normal. When the sky is open and blue, it tends to be windy instead. I'm not sure why. My grandparents are too weather obsessed for me to look up the reason. I'd feel old if I embraced that interest. All I know is that the wind makes taping up flyers a real pain in the ass. I only printed 20, figuring that a cat couldn't go that far. It's already taking longer than I expected for Reid and me to get them all posted, our progress slowed by our need to keep an eye out for Hufflepuff. That, and we're both constantly distracted by the smallest details, because so much is different from New Mexico. Like the street signs that say speed hump. This makes more sense than speed bump, since the raised concrete stretches across the entire street. Definitely more than just a bump. But surely we aren't the only ones to find the word choice amusing. I'm totally going to steal one of those, Reid says. Maybe a few so I can send some back home. Speaking of home, I say, tilting my head in the direction we'd come from, maybe we should double back. Then again, Reid says, still eyeing one of the signs. Do I really want that hanging above my bed? Could be misconstrued. I laugh. Probably best not to advertise that you finished too early. Hey, Reid says, swiping at me, but I'm too quick and dodge away. Even if you're not ashamed of the truth, I continue, stolen street signs aren't the classiest way to decorate. You're not in high school anymore. Then I know what I'm getting you for your birthday, Reid says. You're right. Let's go home. We'll take a different street and put up the rest of these. We only have 5 flyers left, which we tape to poles at the end of every block. Once they're gone, my palms start to sweat, because we haven't knocked on any doors yet. My mystery man lives another block away, but I figure I'd better start now so it isn't completely obvious what I'm up to. I feel guilty after the first door. The woman who lives there seems genuinely upset over our missing cat, which makes me think of all the bad things that could have happened to Hufflepuff. I may not be overly attached to the animal, but I want her to be okay. I start to take the job more seriously, not letting Reid skip houses that he feels look shifty. By the time we reach the next block, I'm not thinking about the mystery man anymore. Not until we reach his house. I already walked by it the other day, just in case he decided to have another argument with his parents, maybe in the front yard for a change of scenery. And yeah, I was hoping to see a car with a rainbow sticker or anything that confirmed my theory. No luck on either front. Now, I have a real chance of finding out the truth. And it intimidates me. I'm not sure why. Maybe because if I'm wrong, I won't have anything left. The fantasy has been nice. I've spent a lot of time escaping into it, imagining how we could meet and how our story would play out from there. I've blown through 3 or 4 different versions. In the most recent, we ended up divorced and fighting over the foster kids, but we still got our happy ending because the passionate arguments made us realize that we were still into each other. We renewed our vows and ended our lives old and married. You go ahead, I say, pulling out my phone like I have something important to do. Reid shrugs and walks up to the front door. I hang back, closer to the sidewalk where I can still see. A parent will probably answer the door anyway. Then again, it's summer and a workday, so... The door swings open, and it's him. I'm able to confirm one thing right away. He's handsome. His hair is chestnut brown and just the right length to stand up on its own, peeking in the middle. His eyebrows are dark, as are the eyes beneath them. His skin is tan, and there's plenty of it on display since he's only wearing sweatshorts, which look way hotter on him than they have any right to. I don't see a six-pack, but his chest is wider than his narrow waist. I already regret not approaching the door with my brother. Would it be too obvious if I went up to it now? Reid is talking and jerks a thumb over his shoulder at me. The guy's eyes start to move in my direction, but I'm quicker, looking down at my phone and seeing my embarrassed expression reflected in the screen. I'm not usually shy. Until I am. Why now? My thumb taps a bunch of things, but my brain takes in none of it. Only when I hear the door shut do I look up to see my brother walking back to me. He's grinning, which is confusing. Good news? I ask. Nah, he hasn't seen her either. Reid nudges me as we resume walking down the sidewalk. Still, could be a nice friend for you. Same age, and everything. What's the everything? I ask, hoping he found out something. You know, Reid says, nudging me again. He was good-looking. You don't have to be gay to tell that. He's probably straight, I say, trying to feign disinterest. But I can't help myself from asking. Unless you were getting a vibe? Reid is already shaking his head. I don't have gay sonar. Sorry. It's gaydar, you dumbass, I tease. As in gay radar? Oh, either way, maybe you should get to know him. It would be good to have a friend when school starts. Are you nervous? Yeah, I exhale. Terrified, actually. It's rough, Reid says, nodding in sympathy. You were around the same group of kids your entire life, and now, when you're about to start your senior year, this is when you're supposed to be celebrating with those people, not stressing about being a total stranger. You're not making me feel better, I complain. Sorry. I get it, man. That's all I'm trying to say. I miss my friends, too. Then why did you move up here? You already had a place of your own. Reid shrugs. It takes him a while to answer. We're walking past houses, but I'm not so interested in knocking anymore. Because it sounds cooler to be a bartender who works in Chicago. That's more impressive than Albuquerque, right? I'm hoping something more will happen here. Bigger city, bigger dreams. Does that make sense? Totally. It's normal to be nervous, Reid says. I bet Mom and Dad are too. New workplaces, new bosses. Hey, let's try this house. I follow him. He knocks, then we wait. Things will work out for us both, Reid says. You'll be the new kid in school. That makes you interesting by default. Everyone else is old news. You'll make a bunch of friends, start dating again, and go to lots of parties. I'll find a better place to work than that dive, and things will really pick up when I move in with Dakota. My head whips around, and I see that he's serious. What? Is that happening soon? Yeah, at least I think so. Her roommate is moving out in 2 months, and Dakota and me, I know we haven't been dating for very long, but I think she's the one. Wow, I say, turning back to the door, which still hasn't opened. Have you asked her yet? No, Reid says. Keep your fingers crossed. This will make us both happy. How so? When I'm gone. I picture an empty couch. Since he's always hogging the entire thing, I usually have to beg before he'll let me sit. That's annoying, but without him there, the basement will be a lot colder. I don't mean the temperature. I'm going to miss him. Reid might be a pain in the ass, but he's also been my best friend since we moved here. It'll suck when you're gone, I reply. Reid looks over at me in surprise. Then he starts laughing. Honest Andrew. My family has always called me that, ever since I was a kid. I have a filter. I just don't see the point in pretending I feel one way when I actually feel another. Reid wraps an arm around my neck, but only so he can put me in a headlock. You're really gonna miss me, huh? Not really, I manage to gasp. Let go! He releases me, and we both turn and step off the porch, deciding that nobody is home. I'll still be around, Reid says, whether you like it or not. I'm glad. I don't tell him that, though. Being honest doesn't mean I have to be transparent. Besides, I'm pretty sure he knows how much I love him. Reid has always looked out for me and been on my side. When it comes to the important things, at least. That's how I know he loves me, too. He grabs my arm, his grip so powerful that it hurts. Look, he hisses. I follow his pointing finger to a house across the street. A gray and white cat is hunched in front of the door, staring up at it and meowing. Hufflepuff. The stupid thing is at the wrong door, Reid says. Come on. We hurry across the street, and as soon as Hufflepuff sees us coming, her eyes get big. Does she run to us in relief? Of course not. Instead, she darts into the nearest bush. Reid and I position ourselves at opposite ends of it, and it's me who has to crawl on my stomach to reach her. She runs before I can grab her, but Reid snatches her up. I wiggle free from the bush, cussing to myself along the way, until I see what a mess she is. No blood or anything, but she's dirty, freaked out, and probably hungry. Let's get her home, Reid says, cradling her to his chest. We'll make sure she's cleaned up and fed, so Mom doesn't have to see her like this. She's going to be so relieved, I say. Reid and I exchange a look, the emotion in our eyes attesting to the same truth. We're relieved too. Me especially. Now I can go back to dreaming about the life I want here in my new hometown. I'm not sure of the details yet, just that it'll involve a guy with chestnut brown hair. Chapter 2. New clothes have a lot in common with a new school. One begins with a timid courtship of sifting through the racks of a department store, the other by driving up to the educational institution. Once the outfit is put together, or the school is enrolled in, confidence rises, and so do dreams of a future filled with potential. That doesn't last for long. Not for me, anyway. The new clothes feel weird now. The way the fabric and denim grip my body is just as unfamiliar as the hallways I'm walking through. I want to check a mirror and consult a floor plan, because in both cases, I'm worried I look like an idiot. If there's one thing New Mexico has, it's space. No amount of housing developments and strip malls will ever fill the massive desert. The schools I'm used to are single-story and sprawling. In Chicago, everything is crowded. The high school I'm in now is 3 stories tall, 4 if you count the basement level. The hallways are stuffed with students, which doesn't make it easier to figure out where I'm supposed to be. Everyone is paired up or in groups, socializing while walking on autopilot. Only the tiny freshmen appear confused and lost. I try hard not to be one of them. I feel naked and vulnerable without my friends by my side. I'm trying my best to make new ones, though. During third period, I strike up a conversation with the guy next to me. This goes well until he realizes that I'm new and imparts the following wisdom. Just stay away from the black kids. Great. You're a racist asshole. Fuck off. I don't say these things, but I already have plans to switch to a different seat tomorrow. I'll claim I can't see or hear well enough if need be. Lunch is predictably awkward, since I don't have anyone to sit with, but I'm prepared for that. I spend most of it texting old friends. I try not to let it bother me that their responses are slow or don't come at all. They're probably having a blast being the new ruling class of the school. By the time I'm walking to 6th period, world literature, my spirits are low. I had a lot of fantasies about someone noticing me in the crowds, maybe due to some lingering aura from my life in New Mexico. My new friend would bound over to me, introduce themselves, and then show me off to their crew. Instant social circle. I'm not vain. I don't actually think I'm any more interesting than the next person. I'm just an optimist who likes to daydream, a combination I'm beginning to consider a major personality flaw. Too often, I'm disappointed by my own inflated expectations. This runs in the family, judging from the way Reid thought that moving to Chicago would somehow make everything better. He probably expected to be flipping drinks in the air and performing bartender stunts at some rooftop club downtown. Instead, he's struggling to learn Spanish at the little corner bar where he works so he can communicate better with the customers. Reid doesn't complain much. He treats it like an opportunity to expand his mind and add skills to his resume. Optimism. It's relentless in our family. I try to get myself back to this mentality, but I'm still not there when I find the right classroom and walk inside. I keep my head down and sit, pulling out my phone and using the camera to check my hair. I wish I hadn't gotten it trimmed. It still has length, the natural waves touching my ears. But like my clothes, the new cut isn't comfortable yet. I feel like squirming in my own skin as I wait for the final period to begin so it can end. I just want to go home. Back to the house a few blocks away. Back to New Mexico miles away. Anywhere but here. The teacher walks in just before the bell rings. After the shrill sound ceases, he introduces himself as Mr. Thorpe. His argyle sweater vest is tight against his slender torso, his beige pants as pressed and fastidious as the rest of his appearance, including his short and tidy hair. The only casual touch is the dress shirt sleeves, which are neatly rolled up to reveal black skin. "I know you were expecting Ms. Funk," he explains. He holds up a hand when some of the students laugh. "Just be happy you didn't have to go through high school with that particular surname. I can only imagine how much character it helped her build. Anyway, Ms. Funk will be back soon. For now, you're stuck with me. Let's start with a riddle. I want you to imagine a prison cell without windows. The walls are solid cement 20 feet thick, and there are no doors." "How can the prisoner breathe?" asks a kid who has class clown written all over him. "There are hundreds of needle-thin holes in the ceiling," Mr. Thorpe says unabashed. "They let in air and natural light. Now then, what's the one thing you can give the prisoner so they can escape? Just one object. Anyone?" Jackhammer?" someone shouts. Mr. Thorpe shakes his head. "There's nothing to plug a jackhammer into." "A metal file," someone else tries. "Nice idea," Mr. Thorpe says. "But a file would be worn down and useless before the prisoner could create a tunnel big enough to escape through. The same with a hammer and chisel." "A teleporter pad," the class clown says again. "Or a magic wand." Mr. Thorpe smiles. "Now those are some creative ideas, but this is the real world. Any more guesses? No? How about this?" He holds up a book. "No matter how dire your situation, you can go anywhere and be anything when reading, even impossible places that have teleporter pads and magic wands." Most of the class groans, but I like it. I've always enjoyed reading, which is good because I'll be spending a lot of time escaping into fictional worlds if things don't improve soon. "If there aren't any doors or windows," the class clown says, "how does the prisoner eat?" "They shove pudding through the air holes," Mr. Thorpe says without missing a beat. "Let's take roll call and then get started." As he says each name, I look at any person I can comfortably see and wonder if any of them will be my new friend. Or more. "Mia Cardenas?" "Present." Mr. Thorpe's eyebrows rise above his glasses. "Are you new here?" "Yes," the girl answers. "Come on up then," Mr. Thorpe smiles. "Don't be shy. Front of the class, please." The girl hesitates. Then she stands and walks up front to wait. He's going to make her talk about herself. Crap. I thought they only did that on television. None of my other teachers singled me out. I'm hopeful I won't be noticed, but as Mr. Thorpe continues his way down the list, "Andrew Evans?" "Here," I reply. His eyes dart to me and away again, and just when I think I'm safe, he does a double take. "I don't recognize you either. Are you new?" "Nope." Honest Andrew fights against this answer, but I push back, because this is survival. Mr. Thorpe blinks. "Really? Who did you have for American literature last year?" "Mrs. I blank. All I need is a last name, but I realize that I don't know any of the right ones, so I say the only thing that comes to mind. "Pants." The entire class laughs. Mr. Thorpe doesn't look too upset, though. "Mrs. Pants, huh?" he says with a smirk. "How fortunate. She's one of our better teachers. Very in charge because she wears... Get on up here. I know it's embarrassing, but this is a great way to meet everyone." Mia and I are the only two new students. I size her up, wondering if she'll become my new bestie, but she looks awfully straight-laced. So does Mr. Thorpe, but he's been cool so far, so I reserve judgment. When she's asked to say something about herself, Mia quickly starts talking about church and her participation in the Business Professionals of America Club. I'm not sensing a lot of common ground here. Then I panic, because I realize that I should have been focusing on what I planned to say. "Thank you, Mia," Mr. Thorpe says, extending an arm to direct her back to her seat. "Andrew Evans, tell us a little about yourself." I decide then to go for it. When I came out of the closet, I did so because I had finally accepted myself for who I am. I still want to learn and grow, but ultimately I took that leap so I could be me. I wouldn't have met Scott if I had kept pretending to like girls. Coming out now might help in that same regard. Scanning the class, I see a few guys I wouldn't mind getting to know better. Hey, I say, starting out easy. I want them to realize that I'm just like anyone else. My name is Andrew. My family just moved here from Albuquerque. I prefer PlayStation over Xbox, and I think the Game of Thrones TV show is better than the books, although the opposite is true of the Shannara Chronicles. Was I losing them? How about music instead? I prefer Childish Gambino over Bruno Mars and Beyoncé over Rihanna. When did this become about choosing sides? I could just say I prefer turkey without hating on chicken. I was probably losing more of my audience with every line I drew in the sand. Time to get to the point. And when it comes to my personal life, I'm into guys and single, so, call me. Dead silence. That's bad enough. Then the snickering starts. That's enough, Mr. Thorpe says. He turns to me and nods. Very interesting, both of you. I can tell we're going to have a variety of different viewpoints this year, which is great. That'll result in some lively discussions, I hope. Thank you both. I'd like to get started by... I rush back to my desk, hating how my cheeks are burning for everyone to see. I don't want anyone to think I'm ashamed. I'm proud of who I am. It's only the situation I find embarrassing. I'm about to sit down at my desk when the guy seated behind me snorts. He has floppy black hair brushed to one side, his bangs partially shading cruel green eyes. He's shaking his head like I'm an idiot. I glare to show what I think of his opinion, and then I sit. Or I try to. I hit the ground instead. Hard. I land on my tailbone. A cry of anguish escapes my lips. It sounds whiny and nasal, which only adds to my embarrassment. There's no way I missed my chair. I know I didn't pull it out that much. As I twist around to see what happened, I notice the chair is as far back as it can go. The guy behind me is leering. The expression only lasts for a second before he hops to his feet to help me with a very convincing, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" If my face was burning before, it's molten lava now. I'm still grimacing in pain, so I must look like a real beauty. The next thing I know, this jerk is pulling me to my feet. He's grabbing my arm so hard that it hurts, and in a barely audible grunt, he says, "Fag." "Get away from me," I shout, jerking away. The guy lets go just as suddenly, my feet scrabbling on the tiles before I sort of lean fall against my desk. At least he's backed off. When I look over, he's wearing a mask of false concern. "I was only trying to help," he says, green eyes trained on the teacher. Right. This isn't the first time I've been picked on. Not by far. I don't look as tough as Reid, but I've learned a lot from my older brother. Being gay will always make me a target. That doesn't mean I have to be an easy one. Standing up to a bully can get your ass kicked, but as long as you land a few punches, they'll usually think twice before messing with you again. Not that it was a good idea to come out swinging. A demonstration was often enough. They just need to see that you've got some fight in you. And I do. As soon as I'm on my feet and stable, I get up in his personal space. If you want to mess with me, bring it. I focus on anger instead of my growing fear, because I'm just now noticing how much weight this guy has on me. I'm skinny. If I physically push him, I'll probably end up stumbling backwards, so I compensate with attitude instead. I'm confused, though, because I'm not getting the same attitude back. His face is slack, the green eyes big as they turn to the teacher for help. "I was only trying to pick him up," he says. "Pick this up," I snarl, sweeping my arm across his desk and sending everything there to the floor. It's a mistake. I can see that now because his only reaction is a barely perceptible smirk. There are bullies, which are common as can be. And then there are psychopaths, which are rarer and much, Much more dangerous. "Mr. Tucker," the teacher says at last, "please take your seat." The other guy complies instantly, adding an all too convincing, "Sorry, sir." "Mr. Evans, if you could please pick up his things and apologize, then we can—" "Fuck you," I snap. Sometimes anger stays with me for days, giving me strength. Other times it flees just as quickly as it comes, leaving me empty, weak, and on the verge of tears. I know I've made another mistake. The teacher seems like a nice guy, but the day hasn't been anything like I'd hoped, and I'm tired of feeling lost, awkward, and alone. I refuse to add victimized or afraid to that list. "Sorry," I mumble. "I'm sure you are," Mr. Thorpe says, his tone clipped. "Now pick up those books and take a trip to the school counselor. Talking to her will help you calm down. All right?" I pick up the fallen items as quickly as possible, not being neat or gentle when I set them down on the desk again. The guy, whoever he is, Tucker, isn't fazed. He just whispers, "See you tomorrow." Before I turn away, he takes something out of his pocket and sets it on the desk next to the mess I made. He doesn't move his hand off it completely. It stays obscured, but I see enough. A wooden handle, a gleam of silver metal. It's a knife, the kind that has to be folded open before it can be used to gut a fish. Yeah, I've made a big mistake. Fear has often been my nemesis, an intimately familiar enemy. I used to grapple with fear on a daily basis. This stopped me from being my true self, from being happy, from finding love. It's one of the reasons I now strive to be honest. People only lie when they're frightened of the consequences that truth will bring. Fear is the puppet master of dishonesty. Other despicable behaviors, too. I often imagine a hierarchy of miserable emotions with fear at the top, like a mob boss who rules over them all. I thought I had conquered fear, vanquished it completely when I came out. Now fear has caught up to me, snapping at my heels as I walk down the hall. I want to run. I'm not worried about getting in trouble. My parents are reasonable, even though they drive me crazy. I know they'll see my side of things. They might not agree with what I did, but I'll freely admit to them that I regret my actions. I don't fear what the school counselor will say, or how Mr. Thorpe will view me from now on. My concerns all center around one particular person. Tucker. I don't know his first name and don't need to, because he is fear personified, just not in the monstrous form I had always imagined. The incident had gone by in a blur, but I remember floppy black hair and a face that could be whatever it needed to be. Innocent, concerned, cruel. If fear had crippled me emotionally before, now it was capable of stabbing me in the gut with a pocket knife while staring straight into my eyes with calm emerald irises. I'm not going back to that class. Not for anything or anyone. I wander down the halls trying to find where to go. When I finally locate the right door and open it, I'm surprised. The school counselor must be in high demand because she has her own waiting room. The usual utilitarian school furniture is absent here, replaced with a love seat and a table surrounded by comfortable chairs. A window on the far wall reveals a private office. The counselor sees me enter and holds up a finger, indicating that I should wait. Then she continues addressing someone across from her, but I can't see who because a curtain hides them from view. I sit on the love seat and start working on potential defenses, eventually settling on the truth. If fear and I are going to do battle again, I'll try what killed it last time. When I hear the office door open, I look up, and the breath catches in my throat. It's him. I'm pretty sure it is anyway. I've only seen him twice. Once at night and again from afar. But I'm certain it's my dream guy. Mystery man, I mean. He's wearing torn jeans and a maroon hoodie, and despite his outfit looking a lot more comfortable than my own, he doesn't appear to be having a good day either. The school counselor isn't far behind him. Her hair is red and curly, her glasses small and round. "Just have a seat in here," she says to him, "and read through the pamphlet. Take your time. There's no pressure. Go at your own pace. We can talk about it afterwards, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Okay?" My mystery man nods. His eyes meet mine briefly, but they don't light up in recognition. He chooses the table instead of the love seat. I stand and follow the counselor into her office. On the way, I try to scope out the pamphlet he's been given in case it reveals more about him. All I can see is that the front is sky blue. "Right in here," the counselor says at the door to her office. She lets me go in first. The room isn't very big, just enough space for a desk, chairs, a bookshelf, and a potted plant. The nameplate on the desk identifies her as Ms. Beaulieu. Way too many vowels, so I'm relieved when she introduces herself as Jill instead. "And what's your name?" she asks. "Andrew Evans," I answer. I offer my hand and add, "It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am." Tucker isn't the only one who can be excessively polite to authority figures. Jill smiles. I can tell she sees right through my act, because while typing my name into her desktop, she ruefully says, "What could bring such a nice young man to see me?" Maybe it's already there on the computer screen. I don't know how things work in this school. She's still smiling, though, which makes me like her because at least she's giving me the benefit of the doubt. I messed up, I admit. It was a bad situation, and not completely my fault. In my experience, the blame rarely rests on one person's shoulders. Jill doesn't sound judgmental when she says this. Instead, she hits the arrow key a few times in quick succession, like she's scrolling through a file. Then she leans back, seeming satisfied. "Tell me all about it." I do so by setting the stage. I'm new, the day was stressful, etc. While going over the basics, I can't help but look to the waiting room window. I can see the table where the guy is sitting. He's facing away from us, but some infuriating part of me decides that even the back of his head is worth staring at. "Just a second," Jill says. She stands and closes the curtain the rest of the way. "These office walls are thick. Nobody can hear anything you say, don't worry. You have complete privacy." I continue my story, relieved that she mistook my infatuation for concern. I'm at the part where I'm bearing my soul in front of the class when I find something else to distract me. I notice more of the sky blue pamphlets off to one side of her desk, displayed upright with a variety of others. Now I can see that the background is a literal blue sky and that the font on the front is stylized to resemble fluffy white clouds. The text reads, "No more classrooms." "So you identify as gay," I clarify. Jill nods, as if to reassure me that she's okay with that, and I believe her. "Everyone at my old school knew," I continue. "Some people had a problem with it, but most were fine. I thought the same would be true here, but when I returned to my seat, the guy sitting behind me pulled my chair out and I hit the floor. He denies it, but I know what happened." "What's the name of this student?" she asks. I'm not sure. That's true enough. A last name isn't much. I don't want to implicate Tucker and give him even more reason to hate me. It's the same reason I don't mention the knife. I tell her the rest, though, including how I lost my temper with the teacher. By the end of my story, she's shaking her head. "Andrew," she scolds. "I know. It was one of those moments you regret right after it happens." "Well, Gerald is a very understanding teacher. I'm sure he would appreciate an apology." My stomach sinks. I look back to the pamphlet and its promise of no more classrooms. If only. "And I'm sure the rest can be worked out if you and this other young man are given a chance to talk it through." That's the last thing I want. Jill notices my panic. "I would be happy to mediate. This will take place in a safe environment." "Sorry," I say, pointing at the pamphlet. "What exactly is that? In New Mexico, they have these home study courses. I think it's called virtual education." Virtual education? Jill repeats this like she's sounding the words out. Yeah, you do it all from home on your computer? Or how about old-fashioned homeschooling? Or getting my GED? Will I still be accepted by colleges if I get that instead? My SAT scores are high. Jill stares at me. Then she blinks. My goodness, you're really shaken by what happened today, aren't you? It's not just that, I say before she can march down the hall, pull Tucker out of class, and force us to bond. It's everything. I thought it would be fun to move to a new state, but it's too much. I don't know anyone here, and I'm confused by how this school works. I didn't think everything would be so different, but it is. I'm losing touch with my friends back home. I've already screwed myself socially here, and I'm freaking out. This isn't an act. I wish it was, because now my throat feels tight from holding back emotion. Jill looks me over. Then she turns her attention to her computer again, which seems like a cold move. At first. We have your transfers from your old school, she says. Your grades are excellent, and you didn't get in much trouble. Just a little, I say. Jill reaches over and pulls the pamphlet free. This is a new program. It still takes place at this school, but in the library instead of classrooms. She opens it so I can see, but it's her words I'm hanging on. People have a wide variety of needs in life. That includes education. Designing a universal system that works for everyone is impossible. In this program, students are given more personal responsibility. You'll be shown what academic goals you are expected to meet, and it's up to you how you get there. Like a magnet school? Yes, very similar. I would love that. I've gotten in trouble for reading in class way too often. Books have even been taken away from me. Not because of the content, but because they weren't assigned by the school. That always infuriated me. If I'm reading, shouldn't that be encouraged? Or if a school insists on sticking to the tried and true classics, couldn't they let students choose which of those books appeal to them? Reid had been assigned To Kill a Mockingbird freshman year. I read it over 2 separate nights and was excited to read it again when I reached that grade. But instead, I got stuck with an English teacher who was obsessed with wars and only assigned books that centered around them. So, an alternative to traditional education sounds good to me. The excuse to avoid Tucker makes it all the sweeter. Sign me up, please. Jill looks amused by my enthusiasm. Then she bites her lower lip and asks, Can I introduce you to someone? He's a new student here too. I think you could both benefit from spending time together. No. She couldn't be referring to him, could she? I shrug casually. Sure. Just a moment. He's the student I was talking to a moment ago. As she gets up and leaves the office, my excitement turns to dread, makes a U-turn toward anticipation, and then does a sharp right toward anxiety. This is good. This is terrible. And it's too late. He walks into the room and sits right next to me, and I pray we're not expected to shake hands because my palms are covered in sweat. Carter, I'd like to introduce you to Andrew. Andrew, this is Carter. I even love his name. This is it. He has to be the one. Hey, I manage. Hey, he responds. We have so much in common already. Andrew is from New Mexico, Jill explains as she takes a seat behind her desk. And Carter, you're from... Phoenix, he says. Then we used to be neighbors, I joke. I refrain from pointing out that we're currently neighbors, too. Carter flashes me a smile, then looks at Jill with unease. I stare a second longer before doing the same, because he's even better than my fantasies. Not hotter. I have a very vivid imagination fueled by all sorts of unrealistic and unattainable visuals. I blame the photoshopped fashion industry, and certain porn websites. Carter is real, though. A normal guy leaning toward handsome, who I've just decided is exactly my type. I love the thickness of his lips, and the way the back of his neck is a little hairy past the buzzed line, like he's got a touch of werewolf in him. And are those dimples in his cheeks? I'm dying. I force my eyes away to focus on what Jill is saying. And so I thought you might be interested in getting to know each other, since you're both new here. It never hurts to have more friends. Am I right? Carter looks over at me and smiles. I'm pretty sure I melt into the chair, which is pathetic because it's only a mere glance in my direction. His head is already turning toward Jill again. We can hang, he says. Sure. We'll totally hang, I say, eager to back him up. Worried this could be interpreted as sarcasm, I add, we're bros now. Yeah, much better. Maybe I should try a fist bump and a high five combo next. Ugh. Andrew was expressing interest in the open classroom project, Jill continues. Did you have time to read through the pamphlet yet, Carter? Yeah, he answers. It all sounds good. Wonderful. Well, let me get everything set up and I'll print out permission slips for your parents to sign. She starts typing on her computer again before our mutual stares pull her attention away. Why don't you two relax in the front room? I don't see any point in sending either of you back to class. The idea of being stuck in a glorified waiting room with Carter? I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I already know it's preferable to getting knifed by a psychopath. I hang back as we walk into the waiting area, unsure of the logistics. I'd love for us both to sit on the love seat, but naturally he returns to the table, the same chair as before, and pulls out his phone. I don't. I sit across from him, taking the opportunity to stare until he looks up. So, I say, what are you in for? He catches on quickly, a smile tugging at his cheek and causing a dimple to appear. Killed a man. His voice is artificially gruff when he says this. It reminds me of the night I heard him yelling at his parents. You? Carter asks. Robbed a bank, I say. I needed a place to hide the money until the heat dies down, so I brought it here. Jill works for me. She's kind of my gal. Carter laughs, the sound coming from deep in his chest. It's loud enough that I see Jill check on us through the window, but she seems pleased. Seriously, I say, how'd you end up here? His smile fades, and I find myself wanting to do everything possible to make it return. I got into a fight, Carter says, looking away. I wonder if he had his own brush with a homophobic bully. Maybe our entire lives have been running parallel to each other, leading to this magical point where they finally intersect. So did I. The brown eyes return to consider me. Huh. For real, though. I did, I protest. It wasn't exactly a fistfight, but that's what I thought. My mouth drops open. What's that supposed to mean? Carter shrugs, his eyes glimmering playfully. You don't look like you'd do so well in a fight. Because I'm skinny? He shrugs again. Something like that. You leave me no choice. Puffing up my chest, I put my elbow on the table with a thud and splay my fingers wide. Arm wrestling time. You and me. Winner takes all. Including the stolen bank money. Carter grins and puts his elbow on the table, too. I was just being silly. I didn't think this through, and I'm glad, because we're about to touch. We don't even know each other's last names, and now we're holding hands. His feel strong in a way mine never have. My fingers are thin and my palms are soft. His feel rough. I wonder how they got that way. On 3, he says. 1. Wait, do we start right when you say 3? 2. Or do you count to 3 and then we go? 3. Carter's hand tenses around mine as he pushes. I push back. I know I can't beat him. His bicep bulge is way bigger than my own, but I'd still like to impress him as much as possible. I last about 5 seconds before my arm begins to shake. When it gives in, he doesn't slam it on the table mercilessly. He eases up right before that happens. And for one glorious moment, the skin of our forearms press together, his hand gripping mine. I'm more than happy to submit to him permanently if it means we can remain this way. But he barks laughter and releases me. "You're not here because you got in a fight," he says, like he can read my mind. "You're here because you lost a fight and you needed Jill to soothe your shattered ego." Busted, I say, relieved that I'm not so transparent. Then again, part of me wants him to know my thoughts, if only so I can see how he reacts. "Oops," Jill says from the other room. Maybe she dropped a pen or clicked the wrong icon. All I know is that it seems to break the spell. Carter's face becomes troubled again. "Do you think your parents will be upset about the open classroom thing?" he asks. Why would they be? It says a lot that we're being accepted into the program. I don't think everyone gets in. Jill checked my grades and I snort and say the next two words sarcastically to prove I'm cool. Permanent record, before she made the offer. Carter looks confused. "Really?" "Yeah. She didn't do the same for you?" He only shrugs. Carter seems to do that a lot. Maybe I should too, so my shoulders become nice and rounded like his. We can make it a trend. The apathy workout. Either way, I say, just sell it to your parents like it's a big honor. They'll be proud. Carter laughs. "Right. Maybe they'll even take me out for ice cream." "Make them take me too," I say. "You heard Jill. We're best friends now." Carter grimaces. "So embarrassing. Don't worry. I've got friends already. I'm sure you do too." "Tons," I say. "The only problem is they're all over 1,000 miles away." I feel myself starting to blush again, but I don't care. It's the truth. "Oh," Carter says. "When did you move here?" "At the beginning of the summer." "Huh. What?" "Nothing," he says quickly. He messes with his phone for a second, maybe to escape the awkwardness. I'm wondering if that's the end of our story when he looks up again. "Sounds like we're going to be classmates." "Yeah. So we might as well be friends. I don't know anyone else in this open classroom thing." "Open classroom project," I say, turning my attention to the pamphlet to draw attention away from what just happened. "You down with OCP?" It's the first thing that comes to mind. Carter looks confused. "Huh?" I try again, making myself sound more like a rapper. "You down with OCP?" This time it clicks. "Yeah, you know me." Carter's voice is booming when he sings this. Then he shakes his head and grins. "Great song, man." "Yeah, super cool. My dad listens to it all the time." "It's my grandma's personal favorite," Carter shoots back. "I'm not surprised," I say. "You know what OPP stands for, right?" "What?" I lean to the right to make sure we're not being watched. Then I whisper, "Old people penises." "No way." "For real." I managed to keep a straight face. "Look it up." To my delight, Carter actually starts to, but I can't hold it in. I splutter laughter. He rolls those beautiful brown eyes at me. "What's it really stand for?" I honestly don't know. Here. As a peace offering, I look it up, and it turns out I'm not far off. We're busy snickering over the real meaning when Jill walks back into the room and places a piece of paper in front of each of us. "Have your parents sign these tonight and bring them back to me first thing in the morning. If, for any reason, they don't sign, well, I suppose it's still good for you both to report back here so we can find a different resolution to your situations." That piqued my interest. What exactly is Carter's situation? Jill checks her watch. "School is out in 10 minutes. You can leave early if you like." We both stand a split second later. An offer to leave school early is never debated or questioned. We try to squeeze through the door at the same time, Carter playfully shoving me behind him. I look back before I go and see that Jill's cheeks are rosy as she watches. That's when I promise myself to invite her to the wedding. Chapter 3. Once Carter and I are outside the school, I keep walking, wanting to get away from there before other students flood out of the building. I see parents already waiting to pick up their kids, an especially embarrassing end to a stressful day for many freshmen. I instinctively walk toward home, knowing that Carter will also have to go in that direction. "What should we do?" he asks. Shirtless back massages would be a good start, but of course I don't suggest this. I don't know. We could go to the mall. It's a lame idea, and I can tell from his muted response that he's not impressed, even though he agrees. I don't want him to regret being friends with me. I can do better. Do you have a car? No need. It's walkable. That's not what I meant. If he had wheels, I would have suggested going somewhere cooler, but if we're stuck in our area, I can't think of anything better. Carter seems to know where to go since he turns at the next corner. We take only a few steps before I stop us. Our backpacks. We left them in Jill's office. Oh, right. Carter looks back toward the school. We'll see her tomorrow morning anyway. I've got my wallet. I do too, I say, patting myself down. Then if our packs get stolen, it's no big loss. Fair enough. We walk in silence as I struggle to find a topic of conversation. What do you think of Chicago? I say, purely out of desperation. It's a question I'm sick of. He probably is too, so I decide to play off of that. I bet you haven't been asked that recently. Carter chuckles. Nobody's told me about winter yet either, and how terrible it's going to be. Oh my God, every single person I meet keeps warning me about it, especially when they find out that I'm from somewhere warm. Just do what I do. Tell them you own only shorts and ask if you'll need something warmer. They practically have a heart attack. I laugh. I guess we'll find out how bad it really is. You can be honest with me, though. No need to worry about hurting the feelings of the locals. Do you like it here? Carter frowns. It's okay. Different from what I thought it would be. I was picturing, I don't know, Gotham City or something. Yes, I say. Chicago is supposed to be skyscrapers and mob bosses and hot dogs, not an endless suburb. It's weird, right? In Arizona, when you leave a city, you're surrounded by desert. Here, it just goes on and on and on. My brother and I got sick of going downtown all the time, so one day we decided to drive in the opposite direction. Carter looks over at me as if interested. What did you find? The traffic thins out a little, and it's more like the suburbs I used to know. Just a lot greener. All the good tanning beds and nail salons are out there, too. It's glorious. Carter laughs again. I'm loving that he gets my sense of humor. And past that? He asks. Farms, and then the next town. He nods like he expected as much. Then he sighs. It's definitely different from back home. Why did your family move? He traps his bottom lip between his teeth. I watch as it slowly slips free again and wonder what his mouth would feel like pressed against mine. My parents came up with the idea, he says. They said it would broaden our horizons, which is ironic because that's the one thing you can't see here. You? My mom got a promotion. Must have been a big one to move you guys across the country. We're basically billionaires now, yeah. I'm sneaking as many glances at him as I dare. His demeanor isn't as carefree now. Maybe it's the topic. I think I understand. Even when I'm having a good time here, a stray memory from my old life can bring me down again. Do you ever get homesick? I miss... Carter trails off. Minutes seem to drift by. I'm tempted to fill the silence, but I'm also dying to know what he's going to say. Is he thinking of an ex? Someone, please let it be a guy, he was forced to part with who he still longs to see? I miss the nature, he says at last. The desert, I say incredulously, not hiding my disappointment. What you really want to get back to is all that dry, cracked dirt. And the mountains, he says defensively. Arizona has some beautiful rocks. You're such a Boy Scout, I say jokingly, hoping to lighten the mood. Carter winces. I was, until they kicked me out. What? I need the full story, now. My mind fills with images of a scoutmaster unzipping a tent and catching Carter and another boy in a compromising situation. In my own defense, I'm imagining him at his current age and the other boy just happens to look exactly like me. You know that line in Toy Story? Carter says, where Woody talks about having a snake in his boot? It's one of the things he says when someone yanks his pull string. He puts on an exaggerated country accent. There's a snake in my boot. I was a lot younger at the time, and I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. We were out camping when I decided that would make a good prank, so, the scoutmaster wasn't happy. Mostly because it was his boot I chose. I laugh, even though I still like my version better. Did he get bit? Or did the poor snake get squished? Neither. The scoutmaster kept his boots in his tent because he wasn't an idiot. Kind of an asshole, but not an idiot. I figured if I unzipped the tent enough to slip in the snake, it would naturally find its way to one of his boots. I was young, he stresses when I make a face. And I thought the snake I caught was harmless. Thought? Young, he reminds me. Anyway, the scoutmaster must have heard me, because he woke up and turned on his flashlight at about the same time I was setting the snake loose. I got lucky. He shined the light on it instead of me. When he started hollering, I started running. Not that it mattered. I was the prime suspect because of course I'd been walking around quoting Woody for most of the trip. When the scoutmaster went around checking tents, he must have heard me laughing. So, in summary, I say with a devilish grin, a cowboy named Woody convinced you to put your snake in another man's tent. Dude, Carter says with a belly chuckle. That's seriously messed up. Why? Because he was young and the situation wasn't remotely sexual? Or because he thinks anything gay is messed up? I decide to give him the benefit of the doubt. It was a trashy joke. I get why your scoutmaster wouldn't be happy, I say. But I'm surprised they kicked you out for a harmless prank. Kids do dumb things. Carter's face turns a little red. It's adorable. The snake was the final straw. I had a history. You're trouble, I say warmly. Aren't you? He shoots me a wink that just about knocks me over. Stick around long enough and you'll find out. Just try to get rid of me, I'm tempted to retort. I don't. In fact, I struggle to find words. I've gotten in trouble before too, but only for normal things like talking in class or passing notes. I haven't had too many brushes with authority. I don't have any cool stories to share. Even worse, I'm taking the guy who likes nature and cowboys to an air-conditioned mall. I don't see myself winning any points that way, but it's too late to turn back. I can hear the rush of cars and see the main road ahead. Our destination is across the street and a little further down. Have you been to this mall already? I ask. Yeah, it's small. It's not the size of it, I say. But even I don't laugh at my joke, too focused on the impending disaster. I imagine us sitting quietly on a bench, listening to the piped-in music while moms push strollers past us. We can go to Starbucks instead. They have one there, Carter says. Sort of. It's just a booth. They could use a real one. A bookstore, too. You like to read? I ask. Yeah. We reach the street corner. Carter hits the pedestrian signal with the butt of his fist, striking it a few times as if already frustrated by the wait. Why do you sound so surprised? I'm not. Okay, maybe a little, but only because you seem more like the sporty type. Now you're saying that athletic people are too stupid to read. Carter shakes his head. That's hateful, Andrew. I laugh. He smiles, and I'm happy that I get his sense of humor too. I pictured you playing baseball, or maybe football. How many sports are you enrolled in? Help me out here, I'm still trying to label you. Boy, isn't that the truth. The pedestrian light turns from orange to white. He leads the way. I was in gymnastics when I was younger. Why'd you quit? I found a different sport I liked better. Which one? He probably feels like he's being interviewed at this point, but I can't help it. I want to know everything about him. Hiking. Carter pauses before saying this. Not as long as before, but I'm convinced he's not being honest. The answer is too weird. Hiking is athletic, but it's not exactly a sport. People don't compete and get medals or trophies for walking around in the wilderness, do they? Maybe he was a male cheerleader, or into ballet. Anything that he would feel the need to hide, lest people make assumptions about his sexuality. Right now, I'm all about making those assumptions, so I try a different angle. What sort of books do you read? The kind that are filled with photos of sports equipment? Seriously, I say, pushing him playfully. Who's your favorite author? Rowling. He says this in a deep voice, like he's desperate to make it sound cool. JK? I ask. No, I'm not just kidding. It takes me a second to get his joke, and I'm impressed, because it's not only witty banter, but she's one of my favorites too. I am obsessed with the Harry Potter books, I say. I've read each one 3 times. Same here, he replies, matching my happy expression. I'm not sure of the exact count, but it's high. When I was little, I even dressed up as Hagrid for Halloween. It didn't work out so well. Most people thought I was supposed to be a bum or a caveman. I laugh at the mental image, and refrain from sharing that I wanted to dress up as Hermione. My parents wouldn't allow it. This was years ago. These days, my mom would probably do my makeup and hair. I opt instead for less embarrassing evidence of my dedication. We have a cat called Hufflepuff. My parents let me name her. His head whips around, and I realize what I've just given away. Were you knocking on doors the other day? She went missing, right? That's right, I say, and in the hopes of steering the conversation away, I add, we found her the same day. She's fine now. Good. I remember you. Now I look over at him. For once, my face doesn't betray me. I'm not blushing, but I am curious. Maybe I made an impression on him, too. Really? My brother did most of the knocking. Bigger guy, yeah. You didn't come up to the door. You were texting or something. Sounds like me, I say. That sounds familiar. I think your house is just a couple down from mine. We live on the other side of the alley, but... No way! He sounds excited. That makes 2 of us. I'll show you where I live later, just in case you ever want to stop by. Man. He says this while wearing a dopey grin. I'm not sure how to interpret that. He either likes me, or he really likes me. Either one works for me. We spend the next few minutes talking about our favorite series. Both of us have taken the quizzes on Pottermore, and we're sorted into Ravenclaw, to our mutual delight. We're talking about which wizarding classes we'd most like to take when I notice Toys R Us. I can see them all now too, but it's not the right place. Let's go in there, I say, nodding at the massive toy store. If we hurry, we'll beat the after-school rush. He laughs and agrees. Once we're inside, I come up with a plan. All I want is to spend time with him, and in order to get the maximum amount, I say, we have to go up and down every aisle. That's the only way to do it. Okay, he says. Except for the baby stuff. We can skip that, right? Nope. All of it. Starting with the far corner. He groans. The aisles we are heading toward are predominantly pink. This is an intentional choice on my part. I still can't figure him out. I really am struggling to put any sort of label on him. A jock who doesn't play sports? A geek who just happens to be cool? As for his sexuality, I keep second-guessing myself. But I figure his reaction to all these dolls might help me figure it out. Gay guys aren't necessarily into girly things, but we do tend to be less intimidated about crossing gender lines. We make fun of what we see in the girls section. I'm sure we'll do the same when we get to the boys stuff, but I make sure to pause in front of the Barbie display, especially the fashionista dolls that include a variety of cute teenage guys. It's not just blonde and boring Ken anymore. And yes, I've stood in this very spot a few times over the summer, wondering if a tiny plastic boyfriend was better than none at all. "Dude," Carter says, sounding excited. He grabs one of the boy dolls off the shelf and practically presses his nose against the package to take in all the details. "Ginger would love this." "Who?" "My youngest sister. She always likes the nerdy guy in any show she watches." Then he holds up the doll and squints at me, as if doing a comparison. I can only see the back of the package, which shows a picture of a doll wearing glasses and a plaid shirt. "That's how you see me?" I say, in mock offense. "You like to read, so that makes you a nerd," he teases. "Taste of your own medicine." "You like to read too, and I don't even wear glasses." "Oh hey, they have one that looks like you." I grab a female doll with black skin and an afro. She's one of my favorites. And yeah, I've been tempted to buy myself some fake friends too. "That does look like me," he says. "Spitting image." I put it back on the shelf, but he holds on to his. "I'm buying this for her," he explains. "How many siblings do you have?" I ask as we keep walking. "2, both younger than me. You?" "Just the older brother you met. That's Reid. We get along okay." "My sisters are brats," Carter says dismissively. "I can't stand them." I don't buy it. He must love them or he wouldn't be proudly carrying a doll around the store. I can't decide what this says about him. He's either cool, or gay, or some mixture of both. No matter what, I like being around him. We have fun as we explore more of the store. In the action figure aisle, we swap memories about the shows we liked best. I find myself wishing the next Fantastic Beasts movie was due out sooner, so there would be more Harry Potter-related merchandise on the shelves. We could have bought matching wands or something cute like that. "Hey," Carter says when we reach the next section. "Bikes! I miss mine." "You didn't bring it with you when you moved?" He shakes his head. "It was a mountain bike. I figured it would be useless here, and I needed the money, so I sold it." "I used to have a dirt bike," I say. After I got too old for it, I inherited Reid's 10-speed, which I don't really like. "You're never too old for a dirt bike," Carter says, setting aside the doll and lifting a bike from the display rack. He gets on it and grins, even though his knees are practically up to his shoulders. I whip out my phone to take a photo. Carter is a good sport and poses. Then he gets up and takes a bigger bike off the rack. He looks around at the empty aisles and smiles. "Hey, grab one for yourself." "Why?" "Come on, just do it." I choose a bike that's similar to his, and as soon as my butt hits the saddle, memories of slow summer days come rushing back to me. We don't need to discuss what happens next. We both start pedaling. Slowly at first. I've never ridden a bike indoors. The cramped aisles make me nervous, the handlebars wobbling until we pick up speed. Carter whips around a corner, and I give chase. "Excuse me." The employee is a blue-shirted blur that we blow past. A few customers have to dodge out of the way, but Carter and I don't slow down, nor do we stop laughing. "Hey!" A different employee this time, who runs after us. Carter seems to have a plan. He leads us to the far corner of the store. There, he skids to a stop. I do the same. Carter holds up a finger, eyebrows raised like he's listening. We both grin at each other when we hear footsteps. As soon as they near, Carter takes off in the opposite direction. I'm right behind him. He leads us back to the bike section, where he quickly hops off the saddle and returns his to the rack. He helps me do the same. "Act casual," he says, grabbing the doll and walking down the aisle. I follow his lead, even though I'm not nearly as good at keeping a straight face. "You two," the employee pants, catching up with us at last. What are you doing? Buying my little sister a present, Carter says, holding up the doll as evidence. He appears legitimately confused. I try to stand behind him as much as possible because I'm on the verge of losing it. The employee is bent over, hands resting just above his knees as he tries to catch his breath. Where are the bikes? He manages to wheeze. I think that section is next to the strollers, Carter says, pointing away from us. Maybe you should ask someone who works here, I manage to squeak out. The employee glares, then seems to decide that we aren't worth the trouble. He musters a "don't do it again" before hobbling away. We wait until he's out of sight. Then we bust out laughing. This one's mine. We're standing outside my house. I already know that I want to invite him in. After our trip to the toy store, we went to the mall, but only for a cookie. Carter was restless while we snacked, so I suggested we head back home, mostly so we could be alone. I'm hoping that, once we're hanging out in my basement, conversation will become even more personal. It's awesome that we're neighbors, Carter says, beaming at the place. I think so too, I say. Want to come inside? Nah. Carter turns away from the front of the house, looking instead toward where he lives, even though he can't see it from here. My mom will want to hear how today went. She keeps texting. Really? Yeah, Carter says sheepishly. You know how it is. New school and everything. Besides, I need to sell them on the open classroom thing. Just ask them if they're down with OCP, I say. This earns me a grin, but it doesn't last long. Carter seems worried. Us getting into this project is a good thing, I say. Remember that. Tell them it's a major achievement, an honor. You have to get them to sign, no matter what. I won't do this without you. We're in this together or not at all. I'm laying it on thick, I know, but the more I keep talking, the bigger his smile becomes. You're a champ. The other seniors won't know what hit them. None of the others will either. Soon you'll be the king of the school. All right, he says with a laugh. Shut up already. And I am the king. That's the spirit. No, I mean it. That's my last name. Carter King, I say, with a sigh. Oops. I quickly thrust out my hand. Andrew Evans. Pleased to meet you. He shakes my hand and his head. You're so weird. He says this like it's a good thing, so that's how I take it. See you tomorrow. I want to ask if we'll walk to school together, but that sounds cheesy, so I let him go. I practically swoon once I'm inside my house. If only we had a fainting couch. I'll talk to my parents about getting one. They're still at work, but I can hear the television downstairs. Reid hasn't begun his shift yet. I follow the sound of studio applause and find him sprawled out on the couch, as usual. Hey, he says when he notices me, sitting up like he'd been waiting. He even reaches for the remote and turns off the TV. How'd it go? Fine, I say, but he can see from my expression that it was better than that. You're one of the popular kids now, aren't you? I bet they're already setting you up to be homecoming king. No, but I wouldn't mind being the queen. That sounded cooler in my head. Carter is a king. I want to be his queen. And maybe I should take a vow of silence because now my brother is shaking his head. You're such a dork, Reid chastises. I take it back. There's no way you're popular. I'm not, but I did make a new friend. Do you remember that one door we knocked on? The guy my age? I tell him everything. Almost. I don't mention Tucker and how the school day had gone from bad to worse. I skip over all of that because it won't matter tomorrow. Instead, I go into embarrassing detail about what Carter and I got up to. Our antics at the toy store don't sound nearly as entertaining when I try to describe them. That happens again when I'm in my room and texting my old friends. My enthusiasm gives away too much. Eventually, they all ask the same question that Reid did. Think you'll be more than just friends? The answer is that I don't know. While we were at the mall, I came close to asking Carter if he has a girlfriend, but I worried that, by assuming he's straight, he might feel pressured to go along with that, just like I used to when still closeted. Making the question a neutral, "Are you seeing anyone?" sounds too much like a proposition, and I wasn't about to ask if he has a boyfriend. I regret that now. I should have found some way to bring it up. The easiest would be letting it slip that I'm gay and seeing how he reacts. But sixth period had shown me that upfront and direct wasn't always the best approach. I'll let people get to know me first, like the way it happened in New Mexico. I should have at least exchanged phone numbers with Carter. Steering a conversation was much simpler with texts, since I could strategize before each reply. Coming out to him that way would be a lot easier, too. But I'd rather see his face when I do. That way I'll know how he really feels. That, and I just really like his face. I flop onto my bed, phone in hand, and pull up the photo of him. Carter on a ridiculously small bike, revving the handlebars like it's a motorcycle. I zoom in, checking out different details. Some naughty, others nice. All of them have me dreaming. I've never said this before in my life, but I can't wait to go to school tomorrow. Chapter 4. When I reach for my phone the next morning, it's because I'm hoping to see a text message from Carter. Then I remember we haven't exchanged numbers yet, and I panic, like we had made it all the way to the altar only for me to realize I don't know my groom's last name. How could I have skipped over something so basic? If anything, phone numbers are more important than last names since they're used on a daily basis. Last names are only useful when you have something to mail, or if you're listening for your name to be called in a waiting room. Even then, they seem fairly disposable. I'd rather give up my surname than my cell phone. I rush through my morning rituals while trying to figure out how I can meet Carter before school. Each idea is more desperate than the last. I mentally go from knocking on his door to leaving early and sprinting circles around his house just so I won't miss him when he exits. I don't know if he'll leave through the front or back door, which is why I would have to keep rushing between the two. In the end, I decide I'm being foolish. I know he'll be in Jill's office. Unless his parents didn't sign. If that's the case, then surely he would have texted last night. Except he doesn't have my number. Ugh. I'm a nervous wreck when I leave home. I use the side entrance. We don't have a back door exactly. The houses in Chicago are arranged like books on a shelf. The narrowest part faces the front. I'm guessing this allows for more homes to be built on less land. The weird side effect is that the view from most of our windows is of our neighbors' brick walls. The houses on either side of us are separated by a mere 6, maybe 8-foot gap. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm pretty sure I could lie down with my feet pressed flat against our house and still reach out and touch the neighbor's place. We do have a door toward the rear of the house, but it leads out to a paved walkway smushed between buildings. That's where I am when I hear someone call my name. I'm trying to lock the door behind me, and when I look over, the key slips out of my hand. In the misty light of morning, I see Carter striding toward me. His grin is confident. The basketball shorts and hoodie he wears confusing my imagination because the material of one is light and slick, the other soft and thick, which would make for one weird hug if our bodies were to rub together. That doesn't happen. Instead, he holds out his hand at a weird angle, and just before I attempt to shake it, I realize that I'm supposed to slap it instead. I let him slap mine in return. "Hey," he says. "I was hoping to catch you. I wasn't sure which door you use." "I was wondering the same thing about you," I admit. "I'm a backdoor kind of guy." He guffaws, which is the best possible start to my day. Maybe not the best start imaginable, but then my noggin is capable of conjuring up some pretty wild scenarios. Such as a squirrel running up one of Carter's legs and down the other with his shorts trapped between its teeth. "Did your parents sign?" "Yeah," he says, all trace of worry gone. "Yours?" Yup. Cool. Cool, I parrot. Would it be too much to offer my arm before we begin our walk? I manage to restrain myself. I'm still not sure what I signed up for, Carter says as we head out. Me neither. I flipped through the pamphlet last night, but it was boring. For all we know, we might have agreed to be slaves in a salt mine. Salt mine? Is that a bad thing? Yeah. Just imagine how much worse our wounds will hurt after we get whipped. The salt gets everywhere. I nudge him. But the good news is that everything we eat will taste better, because our lips will be encrusted with the stuff. Carter shakes his head. I think it'll be more like animal testing. The school will inject us with experimental drugs. If we're lucky, we'll both end up with superpowers. And if we're not lucky, we'll have eyes and noses coming out of random parts of our bodies. Gross. We walk a few paces in silence. But if you had to have an extra set of eyes, Carter says, where would you want them to be? I'd put them on the back of my head. That way I could see behind me. And I could also grow out my hair to hide them. Or you could wear a turban like Professor Quirrell did to hide his extra face. The Harry Potter reference earns me a fist bump. I'd want my extra eyes to be on the palms of my hands. One each. That way I could spy around corners or point them in any direction I want to see. That's a good idea, Carter says. Except it would make jacking off awkward. That would only be a problem once a day. Sometimes twice. Carter snorts. More like 5 times a day. Is he serious? Because that's hot. And maybe of concern. I make a note to buy him some lotion before he chafes himself so bad that it falls off. I'd just wear gloves, I reply. Smart, Connor nods musingly. And it makes it feel more like someone else's hand. You speak from experience, I say. I meant that I'd wear gloves all the time, not just while I'm beating off. I don't want to shake someone's hand and have them feel my secret eye squirming against their palm. Back of the head is better, Carter insists. Hands are needed for too many other things. This debate continues until we switch to suggesting the most ludicrous place an extra pair of eyes could go, and a justifiable reason for each. Eyes on the bottom of my feet, I say. That way I can see if there's a snake in my boot. His laugh falters as we reach the doors to the school. He seems nervous again. I'm not. We squeeze past other students to get inside. I look over at him, trying to copy his confident grin from earlier. We'll make it fun, no matter what it turns out to be. I hope I can make that true. It'll suck if we're shown to separate tables in the library and expected to study on our own. I've mostly forgotten about Tucker. The new reason I'm doing this is to spend time with Carter. Jill seems happy to see us when we enter her office. We collect our backpacks and mess with the contents while she types more information into her computer. The bell for first period comes and goes, and I start to hope that we'll stay in her office for most of the day, signing papers and being prepped for whatever comes next. Okay, Jill says at last. She rises and walks to the hallway door. Time to meet your new classmates. We're standing in the school library, a place that usually fills me with the same warm coziness that I get while reading. Libraries, much like books, are some of the best places to escape into. Usually. Jill forgot to mention one crucial detail about the open classroom project. He'll be your teacher for every subject, Jill is saying. She turns to the man in question. You've already met Andrew. His friend here is Carter King. Not even that name can take me back to my happy place, because my head is filled with storm clouds, and in their center stands Mr. Thorpe. He smiles at us both, and while his tone is as kind as his expression, I tense each time he speaks. I'm worried he'll out me to Carter. Technically, I outed myself when I stood in front of his class and spoke my truth. That was then, when I didn't have anything to lose. Now is different. I know I'll have to open up to Carter about who I am, but I want to do so on my own terms. I've always had this fantasy about having a best friend I fall for, and when I finally reveal that I'm gay and madly in love with him, he does the same. What better way could there be to begin a relationship? Best friends, right from the get-go. "You're both welcome here," Mr. Thorpe says. "We'll get you settled in right away." He looks at Jill. "Unless there's anything we still need to go over." "No," she says, seeming eager to hand us off. Or not, because she lingers, her attention divided between Carter and me. "If you need anything, including a sympathetic ear, you know where my office is." I thank Jill and watch her go. Then I get nervous, because I know what's coming next. I've been in one of Mr. Thorpe's classes before. We'll soon be standing in front of the class and be forced to tell our life stories. A number of tables, chairs, and sofas are set up in one corner of the library, most of them filled with students who are already sizing us up. "Let's introduce you to everyone," Mr. Thorpe says, walking us to the center of this assembly. "Yesterday, we each took turns saying a little about ourselves." He glances over at me. "Although, we can make it a quick introduction if you prefer." "Quick sounds good," I say. Carter backs me up with a simple, "Yeah." "Your attention, please," Mr. Thorpe says loud enough for everyone to hear. "I know we've already done roll call today, but we have 2 new people joining us, so, if you don't mind." He gestures to a girl with blue hair that spills over one shoulder in a gentle wave, the roots just as black as her eyebrows and long eyelashes. Her right nostril is pierced with a simple silver hoop. When she speaks, she has a faint Spanish accent, which is nothing unusual for this area. "Hey," she says. "My name is Olivia Torres." "Patricia Seiler," the girl next to her says. "Eddie Bergman," says a guy at a nearby table. And so it goes. There are only about 20 of us, and it strikes me halfway through that everyone is allowed to say their own name instead of the teacher calling it out. The order is random instead of alphabetical. It's a small detail, but I like it. "Yo, Carter King. I just moved here from Phoenix." "Yo, yo, yo," I say after him, barely managing to keep a straight face. Who says yo anymore? Besides him. And now me. "I'm Andrew Evans, and I'm fresh out of Albuquerque." I'm hamming it up, but I get the result I want. Carter laughs and shakes his head. "And I'm Gerald," Mr. Thorpe says. "Okay, as you were, everyone. I'll get our newcomers acclimated." He's quieter when he continues speaking. "There aren't any seat assignments, but for the sake of convenience, let's start at that table over there so there's enough room for us all to sit. Why don't you go ahead, Carter?" He shrugs and walks that way. I turn to Mr. Thorpe, or Gerald as he apparently calls himself here. His voice is especially low now. "The open classroom project isn't for students who are trouble," he says. "It's for students who are having trouble. I'd like to know which category you fall into." He manages to make the question sound less accusatory than we both know it is. I don't blame him, considering the scene I made yesterday. My goofy introduction a second ago probably didn't help my reputation either. "I'm overwhelmed," I tell him. "By?" he asks. I consider my answer carefully before I speak. "All of it." He nods, as if finding this acceptable. "I've seen your transfers. You seem to have thrived academically at your old school. I assume that was in a normal classroom environment?" "Yes," I respond. No sense in denying it. "I know that doesn't necessarily mean that you were doing okay." Gerald takes a deep breath. He looks to where Carter is now sitting and then back at me. "Still, I expect a lot from you. Your work here will need to be impeccable. That doesn't mean leaving others behind. I'd rather you help them keep up, if necessary." "Okay." I'm not sure what I'm agreeing to. I just want to join Carter again. Gerald seems satisfied. We walk the rest of the way to the table and sit, and from then on he treats me no differently than he does Carter as he explains exactly what we've gotten ourselves into. "You have a cake," Gerald says, "that you have to eat before the end of the school year. It's up to you how you eat this cake. If you prefer little slices, that's fine. If you'd rather shove your face right in and munch hands-free, that's fine too. In many regards, you get to choose the flavor of the cake, the shape of the pan it's baked in, the color of the frosting, and so on. The school's only concern is that you finish the cake with a reasonable understanding of what you've eaten. He looks at a clock on the wall. And now I'm wishing lunch wasn't so far away because cake sounds delicious. Carter chuckles, and I try not to feel jealous that another guy has made him laugh. These are the key ingredients that will bake your cake, Gerald says. He presents us with a list. And at first I feel like we've been conned because it's the usual combination of science, math, English, and other basics. Math isn't the most flexible, I'm afraid. But when it comes to science, you may choose which topics interest you most and focus on those. Likewise with your world literature course. As long as the books you choose meet a few basic qualifications. I perk up at this. So we could read Harry Potter? Yes, Gerald says. Although I'd rather you challenge yourself with The Casual Vacancy or one of the mystery books that Rowling wrote under a pseudonym. Her Cormoran series is a stronger effort, in my opinion. You like Rowling? Carter asks, clearly impressed. Want to join our secret fan club? Gerald smiles, but stays on track. Ultimately, it's up to you what books you read. Keep in mind that you'll need to produce a compelling essay for each, which will be more difficult the simpler the source material. The other subjects are handled in a similar fashion. The school sets a minimum we have to achieve, and it's up to us how we get there. This is soon put to the test. And with that, gentlemen, Gerald says, you're free to do as you see fit. Carter turns to me. Are you any good at math? I do okay. Let's blow through all of that first and get it out of the way. We look at Gerald, who is observing but doesn't offer any objections. Is it okay if we work together? I ask. You can stand up and teach the class if that's what you all agree on, he replies. I don't want to see anyone copying answers, but if you reach the same conclusion together. He soon rises to check on other students. Gerald seems to be there to offer advice, or to tutor and teach when need be. But he's not the constant presence that most teachers are. I'm really liking this concept. Carter does too, so we put a dent in our math assignments with the minimum of goofing around. We want to make this work, and we're not alone. Even when Gerald leaves to fill in for Mrs. Pants, or whatever her name is, the class stays on track. When it's time for lunch, I feel more satisfied than tired. Most of the kids from the OCP sit at the same table, including Carter and me. We're at the very end with an empty seat next to each of us. That means privacy, which I'm eager to take advantage of. Carter is more interested in his phone. I poke at the tray of warm and gloppy food in front of me. Then I give up on being polite. You can text your former friends all you want, I say. Just be aware that, as I become your new best friend, you'll eventually cease to find them interesting. Carter looks up, his brow crinkled. Huh? Oh, sorry. It's not my old friends. It's Bobby. Who? A guy I hung out with during the summer. He's giving me crap about the OCP. I think he's jealous. Who could blame him? I say, feeling a little envious myself. Does he go to this school? Yup. Carter finally sets down his phone. We had a couple classes together, but that was yesterday. He's not happy about the switch. Sounds like I have competition. I mentally declare war on this Bobby person. Hey, can I get your phone number? Yeah, duh. I keep meaning to do that. He rattles off the number to me, my fingers practically trembling with excitement as I type it into my phone. Then I send him our first text. Hey, it's Andrew, your new best friend. Bobby called to let me know that he's giving up the title and that he wants me to have it. Carter reads this, his lips moving a little. I'm worrying he won't get the joke and think I'm crazy when he finally laughs. Bobby isn't my best friend. No? No, he's cool, but... Carter shrugs. I'm not deluded enough to think that I'm his best friend either. Not after a single day of knowing each other. Is your BFF still in Phoenix? Carter seems to think about it. Then he nods. Yeah. You? I can understand the delayed response, because I have to think about it too. Kind of. She started dating this guy, and he's got a sister that she really connects with. It's like she's become a part of their family. We promised to stay in touch, but we don't have as much to talk about now. I don't hear from her so much anymore. Bound to happen. Things change. Good. That means he won't stubbornly cling to his former best friend, giving me a chance. I don't know Carter well enough to judge how close we'll be, or if we have true romantic potential. But in my experience, connections with people don't need much time. You either click or you don't. We decided to finish our meal in the same way we're tackling our OCP course load, by cramming it down our throats as fast as possible. A contest Carter wins by a fraction of a second. At the end of lunch period, I'm more certain than ever that we click. Gotta use the gents, I say on the way to class. Just don't let them use you, Carter shoots back. Ha! My response is automatic. It's only when I'm standing at the urinal that I wonder what he meant. That it would be bad to let the other guys in the restroom use me as a toilet? Or did he mean sexually? Was the comment homophobic? Or meant to be funny, which it's not, because being gay doesn't mean having bathroom sex. To each their own, but I can't think of an environment that's a bigger turnoff. Except maybe my aunt's house, which always reeks of vegetable soup. No idea why. I've never seen her eat a drop of soup in my life. I'm still pondering this when I return to the library. I cut through one of the aisles of books. Then I stop and stare, because Carter is sitting atop the table we'd been using. So is the girl with blue hair, Olivia. Her eyes are shining as she titters at whatever Carter is saying. She looks like she's covered from head to toe in a happiness that had, until now, belonged to me. I hang back until the bell rings. Olivia gets up and returns to her seat. Carter stays where he is, still wearing the same dumb expression, even though she's gone. Hey, he says in a conspiring whisper. Did you see that? Sure did, I say, sitting in one of the chairs and pulling my math workbook close. Ready to keep going? Real smooth. Nothing wins a guy's heart like reminding him that there's arithmetic to be done. I want to pout. I really do. But that ceaseless optimism of mine kicks in. Maybe I was telling myself the wrong story just now. I love women. I find it easier to talk to them, and that includes joking around or sharing intimate details. This seems like a fairly typical preference for most gay guys. Carter could be the same way. Or maybe he really was flirting. So what? He could still be bisexual or any of the other flavors out there. Not straight, though. Please don't let him be that. What did she say? I ask, shoving away the workbook. Carter finally sits next to me. She has family in Arizona. Says she goes there once a year. Oh. I don't care about her history. I just want to know one thing. Was she hitting on you? I don't know. Carter's voice is a whisper. I think so. His grin says he doesn't mind. Or maybe he finds it amusing like I do when women mistake me for something that I'm not. Either way, we need to have the talk. That's right, the talk. Just not in school. After, at his house or mine. Gerald comes over to ask how we're doing, and that's our cue to get back to work. So we do. Eventually, we tire of math and use the last hour to plan when and how we'll tackle the other subjects. I want to decide on what we'll be reading, but Carter seems reluctant. Or maybe he's just distracted. More than once, I catch him glancing in Olivia's direction. When the bell rings, I can't wait to get out of there. I'm worried that Olivia will approach us and ruin everything, but she's one of the first to leave. I'm about to suggest we go to my place when Carter waves his phone at me. Bobby and the others are hanging out at Scoville. Want to go? Sure. I'd rather be alone with him. I just can't find a way of saying so that doesn't sound needy or pathetic. Scoville Park isn't far from the school, nor is it very large. It's the size of a city block and surrounded by artsy little shops that I've already browsed multiple times. I've noticed the park before, but this is my first time walking through it. The park is fenced in by trees, which helps create a natural barrier against the surrounding traffic. The center of the park is mostly a mowed grass field. That might not sound exciting, but the open space is a welcome break from the constant congestion. I turn my face up to a blue sky, letting the sun warm my cheeks, and feel relieved to have made it through another day of school. I'm curious about the situation I'm walking into, and a little apprehensive. A person's friends say a lot about who they are, so I reshuffle my perspective until I'm looking forward to meeting Bobby. If I'm lucky, he'll spill lots of details about Carter that I don't know yet. "We always hang out at the War Memorial," Carter says. He nods to the far end of the park, where circular steps lead up to a large white statue that stands over 3 smaller figures made of bronze. Each member of the trio wears a different military uniform. Above them, the flag of the United States waves in the air. I give all of this only a cursory glance, scanning the sidewalks and benches until I spot a group of students our age. The dais of the War Memorial is made up of steps, and that's where 5 of them sit. My stomach sinks. One of the people we're walking toward gives an upward nod of his head, his black, floppy hair needing to be pushed back into place. Then he locks eyes with me, and I'm certain it's him, because that stare is so cold it gives me chills. "Tucker," I say. "You know Bobby?" Carter's words hit me like a sucker punch, and for one mad moment I wonder if this is some sort of elaborate trap. I don't know," I stammer. "Is that Bobby's last name? Tucker?" "Yeah." I don't have time to respond, or to scramble for an excuse to leave, because we're within earshot now. Even worse, Bobby Tucker has risen to join us. "Who's this?" he says, still focused on me. If I'm lucky, if I'm really, really fortunate, he won't remember me. "Andrew," Carter says. "I texted you that he was coming with." "Right." Bobby's smile is slow and deliberate. "I just didn't realize that." He laughs and shakes his head. "Are you fucking serious? Him?" "What's your deal?" Carter says. "Don't be a dick." "I'm just screwing with you, man." Bobby laughs again, eyes wild as he looks at me. "Come on." He throws an arm around my shoulder as he turns around. I glance over to see that he's done the same to Carter. He's leading us toward the rest of his friends. Every instinct tells me to run, but the arm on my shoulders has moved higher. Now it's around my neck, and it feels a little tight. "How did you two become so close?" Bobby asks. "Don't tell me. You're dating." "Ha ha," Carter deadpans. "We're in that new program together." "The one for retards?" "Fuck this," Carter growls. "We're leaving." Hope explodes inside of me until I look over to see them both grinning. It's only banter. Offensive, annoying banter. "You're missing out," Carter says. "We get to do whatever we want. The teacher isn't even there most of the time." "Maybe I'll join," Bobby says. Hard green eyes lock onto mine. "You'd like that, wouldn't you, pretty boy?" Pretty boy? If one of them is gay, please don't let it be Bobby. I thought I heard that the program is full now. "You'll put in a good word for me, though, won't you? See if they can squeeze me in." "First thing in the morning," I say, relieved when he finally releases me. Now we're standing in front of the War Memorial steps and staring down at 4 other people. Bobby runs through a list of names, and I size up each as a potential threat. Mick must weigh a ton, his straight blonde hair shoved under a John Deere cap. Pedro barely looks up at me, too busy rolling a joint. Philippe is scrawny with a pitiful goatee, his blue-collar clothes out of season and out of style. And then there's Jackson, a black guy who's giving me the eye. He's about my size, not quite as skinny. But I find him a lot more intimidating when Bobby introduces him as my right-hand man. Bobby even makes Mick scoot over so he can sit next to Jackson. Carter and I remain standing. So how did you two lovebirds meet? Bobby asks. Carter answers, but I don't hear what he says. I'm too unsettled by the way Bobby smirks each time he looks at me. I start listening again when his head tilts in my direction and he says, You know about him, right? No, what? Carter asks, expression puzzled. Bobby grins, like this is the best news possible. No, what? Carter asks again, sounding less patient. This guy is trouble, Bobby says, leaning back and stretching out a leg. He flipped out in 6th period and started throwing stuff around the room. Didn't you, Andrew? I go along with him, hoping it will buy me time or earn me respect. Maybe if I'm funny, the rest will be overlooked. I just have these moments, I say, clenching my hands while pulling the craziest face I can, where the tension builds and builds until I Hulk out. Rawr. Bobby stares. Then he laughs. The rest of them do too, but it doesn't sound mocking. You're crazy, man, he says. Hey, Pedro, hurry up with that joint. The rest of you move over. I want to get to know this fool. Is that how this works? Is acting crazy all it takes to earn the respect of a legitimately crazy person? Maybe I can make a career of this and be an ambassador to the insane. I'm not thrilled to be sitting next to Bobby, but Carter is to my left, which provides some comfort. I try to focus on him. Before long, a smoldering joint is being offered to me. Your turn, Bobby says, choking on the words as he tries to hold his breath and the smoke in his lungs. Drugs aren't a regular thing for me, but I've indulged enough to know that getting stoned is best done in an environment where I feel secure. Weed magnifies emotions, good or bad. I'm already jumpy enough. I know that will only get worse if I partake, and yet, I also can't refuse. I'm being watched, like this is a test, which it probably is. I take the joint and inhale, but I make sure not to draw very hard on it. Once I blow out smoke, Bobby slaps me on the back. There you go, he says. Now you're one of us. It's not my first time, I shoot back. When I notice him tense, I add, My grandma let me take a drag of her cigarette when I was 9. This is the same thing, right? Everyone laughs, and once again, I'm safe because I'm silly. A lot of gay people learn this defense. If you're amusing enough, people forget to hate you. I bet that's why Oscar Wilde was so witty all the time. The clever things he said and wrote helped distract from his preference for hot young lords. I pass the joint to Carter, who sucks on it and blows out again immediately. I don't think he knows how to inhale, but his secret is safe with me. So, how did you and Carter meet? I ask Bobby. The story isn't very interesting. At the start of the summer, Carter was doing lawn work for extra cash, and one of those yards belonged to Bobby's neighbor. They talked a few times over the weeks until Carter asked him what people do for fun in Chicago. So I told him about drifting down on Lower Wacker Drive and took him there the next weekend, Bobby says with a wicked grin. You should have seen his face, Jackson chimes in. You had fun though, didn't you? Yup, Carter says. We gotta show Andrew that too. I don't know what they're talking about, and I don't care. I'm just happy that Bobby is too distracted to notice I'm not really smoking the next 2 times the joint is passed to me. There are 7 of us, and that's enough to burn it down to a roach. My head feels light, but I'm not fried by any means. My heart is pounding, though. Something about Bobby's energy, the way his every word is an affront to kindness and sensibility, makes me nervous. Go figure. Conversation goes on without me for a while. The topic moves from the most fun that can be had in Chicago to some guy named Dirk who moved away last year, but who, by all accounts, made everything fun. I can't keep up with all these names. Maybe it's the weed. I can't even remember who the scrawny dude is, or the name of the big guy who looks like a farmer. Holy motherfucking Mary, Bobby says suddenly. He gives an appreciative whistle. Who invited the mermaid? 3 girls are approaching us. I recognize only one. The blue hair is hard to forget. Olivia is here. Great. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse. Dibs on blue, Bobby says. Then again, if he's interested and it works, that would remove her from being a threat. Him too, depending how wrapped up in the relationship he gets. She's mine, Jackson says. Don't be greedy, says one of the other guys. You've already got Harper. One of the girls, a redhead, raises her hand and waves. Jackson waves back. Maybe it's time for me to upgrade. Classy. I can see why he's Bobby's right-hand man. Shut up, Carter says. Both of you. The mermaid is mine. She doesn't belong to anyone, I spit. Especially you losers. Bobby chuckles as if I'm being cute. Which one do you like, Andrew? Becca? Harper? Or the new one? Come on, who would you like to finger? Or eat out? I grit my teeth. You know the answer to that. Barking up the wrong tree, am I? How about Jackson here? I bet you're dying to shove your tongue in his butthole. Or is it me? I saw you checking out my package earlier. No, wait. I think I get it now. You want... I shoot to my feet. To my dismay, a hand grabs my arm and yanks me back down. If you leave now, Bobby whispers, leaning in close, I'm going to follow you home and beat the fuck out of you on your own lawn, right where your mother can see. I yank myself free and stand. Let's go then. Come on home with me. Let's tangle. Bobby grins. I guess he likes me after all. Everyone laughs. Except Carter. He looks confused. I'm leaving, I say to him. Are you coming? Carter glances at the girls. That's all the answer I need. I turn and stomp toward the nearest street. I'm about to cross it when I feel someone grab my arm. I ball up my hands into fists, ready to swing. But the fight goes out of me when I spin around and see Carter's worried face. Hey, what's wrong? Why'd you run off like that? I'm gay, I snarl. That's what's wrong. Carter looks like I slapped him. You're gay? I take a deep, shuddering breath. Yeah. I'm not. I get it. Even though it feels like a line drawn in the sand, I understand that in a split second, he must have seen the previous 48 hours in an entirely new light. Every compliment, every brush of physical contact, no matter how small, must now seem like I was desperately hoping for more. He would, of course, be exactly right. My face is burning. I'm embarrassed by my own actions, or at least my thoughts, which I had believed were private and invisible, but I guess not. Okay, I say. Then I turn and cross the street. I'm halfway down the next block and pushing through an incomprehensible jumble of emotions when I hear his voice just behind me. I don't get why you're mad. What did I do wrong? He sounds hurt and confused. I would have preferred hateful and cruel. That would be easier to deal with. Instead, I'll have to explain what I'm feeling. I don't want to. Not at all. So I deflect. I'm mad at him, I say, pointing in the direction of the park. Tucker, Bobby, whatever his name is. Remember when we met? It was yesterday, so yeah. Carter tries a goofy smile, and it almost works. It ends up hurting me instead, because I still find him so damn cute. I told you I got into a fight, remember? Well, it was more like an argument. Gerald was substituting during 6th period. Our teacher from the OCP? Yeah, he was subbing for the usual teacher. Gerald wanted me and another girl to say something about ourselves, and I tell him what happened, feeling pathetic instead of vindicated. I should be able to fight my own battles. I don't need him to. I just want him to know what an asshole his friend is. Fucking Bobby, Carter says, shaking his head. I know he can be a dick, but he flashed a knife at me. Carter rolls his eyes. He doesn't sound surprised. That stupid knife. Listen, man, Bobby is all bark. He likes to rile people up. That's just his way. He did the same thing to me. Don't feed into it and he'll stop. Think of it as a sort of initiation. Once you get past it, I don't want to be his friend. He threatened to follow me home and beat me up once I got there. Isn't that messed up? It's like he wants me to know that I'm not safe, even at the place where I should feel the safest. He's crazy. He's full of it. I shake my head in disbelief. Now I know that you aren't gay, because if you were, you would get it. People like me get beat up. We get killed. Ever heard of Matthew Shepard? No? I laugh, but there's no humor in my voice. Seriously? They tied him to a fence, beat him, and left him there to die. And he did. Would you tell Matthew the same thing? That he shouldn't have fed into it? I don't know, Carter says. I'm confused. Great, you be confused. I'm freaking scared. Of him. Tell Bobby that and see how he reacts. Before you do, imagine if you found out that someone was frightened of you. Ask yourself how you would react, and then ask him, because I bet his response won't be the same. Carter's mouth opens and closes. I'm done. He'll never understand what it's like to constantly be on guard, just because of who I am. Never mind. I'll see you around. I walk away. Carter follows even when I go faster, so I stop again. What are you doing? I demand. Walking you home, Carter mumbles. I don't want you to be scared. That gets me right in the heart, which sucks, because it's tender enough already. I don't need your pity, Carter. I don't need you at all. Leave me alone. He looks hurt as I storm off. The expression remains on his face, even when I look back over my shoulder, but he isn't following me anymore. I got my wish. I'm alone. That's the problem with filling yourself with pride. There's such a thing as too much of it. Even now, because I can barely admit that I was wrong. I am scared, and I do want him with me.